Welcome to the LEXION Operators Interface area. Here we'll be discussing the C-Motion handle, the CEBIS touch display, the click dial, and the quick access buttons on the armrest. Let's start with the CEBIS touch display. Here you can see we do have 3 different modes or displays built in. Let's start with number 1, or our road. You can see that I've placed the backup camera right here in the middle. If we're driving down the road and we want that to be enlarged, we can touch it and we have more visibility of what's happening behind us. You can see the miles per hour, engine RPM, fuel level, engine temperature, and DEF level. Right here in the 3 different user-defined areas, we can configure and change them to how you want. By pushing and holding, we can go and change setups. So here I've got the backup camera, and here I've got the grain quality camera. To the right, we still have our quick access buttons to our main menu, as well as various information around the outside of the screen. You can see that we're in 2nd gear. We're stationary currently. We do have a low fuel level. Our park brake is on, and we have the time and the date. Going to display 2, you can see all of our settings on our threshing system and cleaning system. You can see our header height control display, our grain quality camera here in user-defined settings, and information that I've programmed into this 3rd box. If we just lightly touch, we can go and change our fuel level and go through and select whatever we want. Let's say I want to check my coolant temperature continuously. We do have coolant temperature there. Or if we wanted to change this whole area, just like we did in display 1, we could push and hold, scroll through, and I want to see my distribution system. There we have my chopper settings up on the main display. Over here you can see our throughput of our crop, and we'll discuss this in more detail in another video. Our engine load, our returns losses, so they will go from the bottom upwards in a blue line, our grains in our returns, our rotor losses, and our sieve losses. If we do have auto thresh, which this one does, beside our rotor and sieve losses, you can see our grain quality camera losses. So foreign material other than grain, and then cracked grains. And again, they will come from the bottom and shoot upwards. Also, just like on our other one, our time and our date, our park brake, fuel level, which gear we're in, miles an hour, and our favorite selection. Towards the top, if we wanted to see our cameras, we could touch that. If we touch the camera itself, we could make it larger for better vision, and as well our backup camera, and we can enlarge that as well. Right here we've got CMOS dialog. So if we want to work on a system that isn't performing the way we like, let's say we're having an issue with grain loss, we could touch the grain loss and say it's on the cleaning system, and it's going to give us a warning saying that our engine isn't running, but it'll walk you through steps that you could take to improve your grain loss. Right here we've got quick access to 3 different crops. So we can see that we have wheat, oats, and cleaning by blowing, and you can configure those the way you see fit. We will change those in another video. And right here, just quick access to our jobs. So you can see that job number 1 is selected, and we can start and stop our jobs here. On the right-hand side, you can see our submenus of our header, our drive, our steering, the machine automatics, dialog, our crop, work records, our counters, our service, and our settings. We will be going through those step by step in other videos. And right here, our header setup. You can see on the right-hand side, this would be our auto contour side. The wavy line will be the ground. Anything below the ground will be ground pressure. Anything above that would be working height. On the right-hand side of this gauge, you can see that we have our headland or upper mode, which is a fixed mode. And right here, very important, that little triangle, the little black triangle, is our working switch. So when you're going from auto contour to headland mode, the system needs to sweep through there to be able to count and record your acres. And again, we will be going through that in another video. So on display 3, for our automatic settings, we can touch anywhere where there is an A and turn the system on or off. So we can turn auto separation on or off just by selecting that button. We can turn auto cleaning and auto slope on and off. We can turn auto thresh on and off. We can turn our cruise pilot on and off, as well as change some of our strategies. And we can turn auto crop flow on and off and change the sensitivity as well. Next, we'll take a look at the C-motion handle. Here you can see that we have our reel controls. So we can go reel up, reel down, reel forward, and reel backwards. We've got our header stop button. On the bottom of this button, we've got auto contour in the downward position, which is shown on the left-hand side of the gauge. And then upwards is automatic for the headland on the right-hand side of the gauge. We've got our automatics button. By pushing this, we can engage our GPS, our automatics for things like auto crop flow and auto threshing and auto cleaning, and our cruise pilot. Here's something new on the C-motion handle for the C89 models. We've got our favorites menu. This replaces the hotkey. So by pushing the star, we can pop up 7 different items for our favorites. By scrolling down, we can select, right here we've got header pitch. And then by hitting the trigger on the front of the C-motion handle, we can control the pitch up or down. Once we've selected header pitch will stay here until we select another item or until the unit is turned off. So we can either go through and turn that off, bring it back up, select something else, and then we can use the dial to bring it up and down, or we can use the minus or the plus, or again, the trigger on the front of the joystick. Also on the joystick, we do have the buttons for the auger out and in. We have auger on and off with the yellow button here. And again, the trigger on the front to control our favorites and some other things. Right here we do have our dial where we can scroll through our menu, and by pushing we can select, and then we can still scroll and push down to select. We've got our escape button. We do have an information button. And then if we do not want to touch the stars on the joystick or the display, we can push the star down here and scroll through that way and control it. On the right-hand side of the armrest here, we do have header engagement. The unit does need to be at idle to be able to engage it. It will not engage at high idle. To reverse the header, we push this button, and you can see we flip this forward, and that will reverse the feeder house. Threshing system on and off. We do have quick access buttons on the right-hand side of the armrest here. We do have threshing cylinder speed, concave clearance, fan speed, upper sieve, lower sieve, rotor speed, and rotor flaps. As well, right here in the orange buttons, we do have the shift buttons. No longer is it necessary to push and hold the brake. All we do is make sure that we are in neutral, and we either tap upwards or downwards, and you will see the shifter change from low to high or high to low. Beside that, we do have four-wheel drive if it is equipped, and diff lock, shear bars for the header, half rate unloading. So if we only want it to unload at perhaps 2.5 bushels per second. We push that button, it will light up, and only one cross auger in the tank will turn on. To re-engage it, we do need the loading system to be turned off. Beside that, we do have buttons to open up our hopper and to close it up. We simply push and hold it for a few seconds, and then we can let go and the hopper will continue to fold. Right on the back here of the armrest, we do have a USB so that we can charge our telephone. Right here you can see we've got the throttle. Right now it is at idle. We do have half throttle and full throttle. We have extra storage under the armrest, as well as we can adjust it so that we can push it down or up to suit our needs, as well as slide it forwards and backwards. On the front of the armrest here, you can see we've got radio controls and Bluetooth controls, so you can hook up your phone to the system. On the right here, we do have a telephone holder to hold your telephone. Here under the information tab, you will find your unit serial number and a QR code that will link you to the CLAAS Connect portal. By scanning the QR code with your camera, it'll take you directly to CLAAS Connect. Here we will be going into a little more detail on the operation of the display. First of all, you can touch just about anywhere and the affected area will open up. Here you can see we touched the threshing area and our threshing adjustments pop up. To close this, just touch the double arrow back. Let's start with the display modes. Here you can see the road display, where you can see the miles an hour, RPM, fuel level, engine temperature, and DEF levels. Here you can see 3 user-defined areas, which can be changed. Push and hold, and you can change that out to whatever you feel fit. Display 2 is more of your working screen, where you see all the settings of the combine. Right here you can see we've got 13 millimeters on our concave, and right now the system is not operating, so we have 0 RPM. Here you can see our upper and lower sieves, 17 and 11, our rotor RPM, and rotor flaps. You notice that the RPM is grayed out because the system is not running. Once again, just double arrow back to make it go away. As well, we do have our 3 user-defined areas. Once again, to change that out, you can push and hold. Select what you want. Here I've selected the distribution system, and you can see our chopper settings now. As well, right here you can see our fuel level and other things, and we can change that. If we do not want to see our fuel level, we can get the job counter, and it changes it out. Down here you can see our engine load, our miles an hour, bushels per hour on the upper portion of this display. Right here we've got our returns, our grain in the returns, rotor losses, and sieve losses. And if you have auto threshing, you'll have 2 extra displays here. These work coming from the bottom upwards towards the top of this display. So let's get in and do some adjustments. So if we wanted to change our sieve adjustment, we could just touch that area. And here we can go minus, and you can see it's changing. Or we can plus. Don't forget to hit the check mark to change it. Also, we can do a direct enter. So if we wanted 15, hit the check mark, it'll stay. Or we can use the scroll on the top here, hit the check mark, and it'll stay. Once again, you notice because our engine is not running and it's not engaged that our fan is grayed out and we cannot adjust it. To change our sieve losses, touch anywhere in this area, and you can notice that our sensitivity for the rotors pops up. Once again, changing it in one of 3 different ways, hitting the check mark to change it. Double arrow to make it go back. Right here you can see our header adjustments. So you notice right here we've got an arrow up here showing our upper height. So that is for our headlands. And down here on the right hand side of the graph you can see our auto contour or ground following. So anything above this wavy line is off the ground. Anything below that is ground pressure. And importantly, this little black triangle right here, that is our working switch. So you want to make sure that the header passes through that working switch so that it'll count area. We will go into more detail on another video on this. Also here you can see the little star for our favorites. So you can set these up the way you want. You'll notice that right here we've got our CLAAS auto contour is our last thing. So all we need to do is hit the trigger on the front of the joystick to make it go up or down. And that will stay in there until we select something else. To select your favorites, just touch on the star, either on the display or on the joystick. Touch what you want to adjust. Here I've selected header pitch. And you can use the joystick, the trigger on the joystick on the front side to change it, or the plus and minus. You'll notice that will go away after a short while, and header pitch will stay selected until you choose something else or the engine is shut off. Let's take a look at the rest of the screen here. Up here on the top, we can see quick access to our jobs. Right here, you can see job number 1 is accessed. If we wanted to select job 2, all we do is touch it, double arrow back. Right here, we can save 3 of our favorite crops for quick access and quick setting. And we will change those in another video for you. Right here you can see we have CMOS dialog. If we're working on grain losses, you can touch that area that you're concerned about and it will give you information on how to repair that. Again, you notice that we're not running, so it's given us issues like that. Here we've got the camera, and to make the camera larger, we touch the camera itself. It'll take up the whole screen. Double arrow to make that go away. Along the bottom, you can see our park brake is on, and that comes on automatically as soon as we're in neutral. We've got the date and the time, miles an hour, which gear we're in, and again, our favorites. Let's take a quick look at screen number 3, so our automatic screen. We can touch any one of these A's for quick access. So here we've got our auto threshing, and you can turn auto threshing on and off if you choose. We've got auto cleaning and auto slope here, and auto separation, as well as our steering as well. So here you can turn your steering on and off and select what system you're using, whether it be sensing bands or GPS. Up here we also got some quick inputs on the crop, which we will discuss in another video. Here we're going to look at the drive menu on the CEBIS touch display. To enter the menu, hit the drive on the right hand side, and here you can see our driving strategy. What this does is makes the joystick or propulsion system more or less reactive. If we go towards the turtle, the joystick will not react as quickly. Or if we go towards the rabbit to the plus side, it will act quicker, getting you up to speed and being more responsive. Typically, most people leave it at 0 and find it fine. Affecting driving logic, basically leave that alone. That is for the system to find its best driving strategy at harvest speeds. The pulses per 100 meters, that will never be touched by you. That's more so for tech. We have one setting for TerraTracks and one for different size tires. Here on the TerraTrack, we've got 3 different height levels. We've got normal, elevated, and high. If you need a little bit more clearance, you can choose the higher elevation on that. Typically, everyone runs in the normal position. We can learn the TerraTrack if a code or something comes up. Basically, all we do is touch learn, hit the green play button, and it'll go through a learning process for you. Once again, the engine would have to be running for that. The automatic brake control, you can see, is turned on. So as soon as we put the control lever into neutral, the park brake will come on and be displayed down here. If you choose to take it off, you will have to use the foot brake for the parking brake. We always recommend leaving it on. Also in the drive tab, we have the diesel engine here. We can see that our maximum engine speed is 1855 RPM. We have a button to turn dynamic power on and off. It is suggested to leave it on as it has several different power bands for the engine to run where it can derate and come back up automatically, saving you in fuel. We can see our filter charge, and then we have settings for the regeneration. We have automatic and manual. Best to leave it in automatic.
Next, we will talk about our steering menu. Here, we're going to see for our autopilot, we're going to have our master on and off switch. Just tap that. When it's green, it's on, and when it's gray, it's off. Here we see our guide sensor. We have a couple different options. No sensor, sensing band, which is for corn head, as we are hooked up here right now currently. And then if you have any type of platform or draper head, you're going to see another option to select for GPS. Below that, if sensing band is selected, you have a couple different adjustments. And here on the first one is going to be our centralizing position. And we can go left, negative, or right, positive to center the head on the corn row. The other one is going to be sensitivity. We can go from -10 to +10, and this will change how aggressive or how sensitive the machine adjusts to changing road conditions. And finally, at the bottom here, we have two different learning procedures for driving straight ahead and calibrating our sensing bands on corn head.
Now we're going to take a look at the machine settings on the CEBIS touch display. By opening up the machine menu, you can see the speeds. Here we have a list of all our speeds, are required and actuals in the units that they're in. It's really nice for looking for belt slippage or issues of some kind. Also, you can see we can learn our belt speeds here, which should be done. So by pushing and holding, it comes up with what we need to do for the learning procedure if we want to know more information about it. Or we can just touch learn, hit the play button, and it'll walk us through as well. Below that menu, we can see our belt slip limits. So we've got different limits built in for different systems. And we can turn our belt slip monitoring on and off with the buttons below. From the speeds menu, we'll now go into the threshing menu, and you can see our threshing drum is set at 640 RPM. Our concave is at 10. We can adjust that with the plus and the minus button. We can scroll, or we can do a direct entry and make sure to hit the check mark. Below that, we can see the threshing segment, and right now you can see that it's out. If we wanted to roll that in hydraulically, we could touch the bottom of that button and it'll roll it in for us for harder to thresh grains. Below that, we've got the threshing concave flap. It's basically like a filler bar that will give us more grain on grain threshing. Right now you can see that it is out. If we touch the lower portion of that button, it'll roll it in. Here on the separation menu, we can see our rotor RPM and our rotor flaps. Right here we can see our sensitivity for our rotor losses, and we can turn our rotor losses on and off. In our cleaning menu, we've got our fan speed, upper sieve and lower sieve, the sensitivity of our loss monitors, and our returns volume limit. The returns volume limit usually never needs to be touched unless we've got a flashing display and we're having issues, but 9 out of 10 times no one will touch that. The sensitivity for the grain portion basically is a calibration and never needs to be touched. And here we can see our loss monitors for our camera and our electric sieve adjustment on and off. We have to tell the machine what kind of sieves we're operating here. So here you can see on our upper sieve that we're using the TM6 frogmouth sieve. On our lower sieve, we also have the TM6. And we can learn our upper and lower end stops of the sieves just by touching it and hitting the play button. It'll go through and do a calibration. And zero our returns. So our returns volume needs to be zeroed while the engine is running wide open throttle with no crop going through. Next, we'll take a look at our chaff and straw processing. Here you can see the button where we can set our spreading direction. We can force it left or right. Here you can see I've forced it to the left-hand side to keep it off of a road or out of the crop on the right-hand side. And the button beside it will force it the opposite direction, so it's a mirroring effect. Distribution is our full width. So if we don't want to spread it quite as far, we can drop it down. And then we've got center overlap. So if we think it's not spreading 100% in the middle, we can adjust that as well. This machine is outfitted with side wind compensation. They are grayed out, but we do have our on and off button and our sensitivity. Right here you can see our chopper position. We can switch it into road mode by a simple push of a button, which flips the chopper upwards, giving more room for the hitch. We've got chopping mode and swath deposit, all from inside the cab. Here you can see we can move the floor of the chopper. By moving the floor up or down, it'll change to chop quality. We can put our chopper knives in or out with this guy. And right here, we can change our chopper speed from inside the cab from high to low. Also, we can learn end stops of our chopping system. Again, if we push and hold, it'll give us more information on that. Next, we'll take a look at the grain delivery system. We've got a button here that'll take us from high to low. So right now in high, we have 2 crossbed augers in the tank that will be turning, filling up the unloading auger. If we switch it to turtle or low gear, it will shut 1 cross auger off, putting us out at half rate basically for gentle or slower filling of a grain cart that's fuller. Beside that button, we've got service mode. If we activate this button, the auger itself only will turn on. The bed augers will be shut off. And right here we can learn our grain tank unloading tube. Next, we'll take a brief look at the automatics on the CEBIS display. So right here, first of all, we can see cruise pilot and it's turned off. I always suggest running with it on. Here we have our strategy. So we've got 3 different strategies. Cruise control, so if we want to drive 1 speed and 1 speed only. Next, we've got constant throughput. If we want to see just a consistent crop mat going through the machine. Next, we have throughput, monitored throughput. So what we're doing there is running with a volume through the machine, but once we do see a level of losses, the machine will slow down. This is best used when not using automatics for cleaning, as the systems will fight each other. Right here, we've got our target values. So this one is grayed out because we're on constant throughput. We will have a speed here if we're using cruise pilot or cruise control. Next, our maximum speed. That can be set to whatever you're comfortable with. If we want to change it, let's put a new beginner operator in here and get them down to about 3.5 miles an hour. So now the machine will speed up to 3.5 miles an hour and not go past that. Our throughput is how much deflection will be on that feeder house chain. Next, we have engine load. So Cruise Pilot will go up to whatever you have that setting set to. Typically, most people in an even crop can run it up towards 100%. Next, we have ground speed during emptying. So once we have our auger out, it will lock the ground speed, reduce it just by a hair, and then lock it so that the grain cart operator doesn't have to chase the combine. Sensitivity. We have very soft, medium, aggressive, and very aggressive. The more aggressive you set that, the quicker the machine will speed up and slow down. Once again, very important in greener crops that you have it more aggressive so that it can react quickly. And then we have the learning procedure, which we discussed before. If we push and hold, it will tell you what that's about. Here we have our automatics, and you can notice that they're all turned off. We can turn them all on just by touching them. So we have auto threshing, auto separation, auto cleaning, auto slope, and auto crop flow. I find it very important to keep auto crop flow on to prevent pluggage. Here in our optimization strategy, you can see the 3 slider bars for the 3 different things. And it's as easy as just touching the screen to more throughput, more gentle threshing. We can improve the threshing or increase the throughput, improve grain cleanliness or increase throughput. Again, we will go into more detail in another video. Right here, we've got our grain quality camera button. So right now you can see our grain quality camera is turned on. We can turn it off just with the touch of a button. We have high, medium, and low for sensitivity on the crop flow. If we set it to high, it's going to be highly sensitive and perhaps shut the system off sooner. If we go to low sensitive, it's not going to shut the auto crop flow off as soon as it would on high. Typically, we tell people to start in the medium, which is a good starting point. Here, we can learn inclination to figure out what angle and what zero set is on your machine. So if you ever do any adjustments on either the track height or the tire inflation, it is a good idea to do this. Next, we'll take a look at the crop data button. So here you can see we are actually on wheat that was required. If we wanted to change that, just touch the crop data button here, scroll through and select what you're looking for. So if it was oats, hit it, and then the oats is ready to be loaded. You would load it by hitting the play button. You would have to make sure that the engine is running, the threshing mechanism is engaged, and you are at wide open throttle. Here you can see we've selected oats, and it gives us our settings for all our oats, threshing cylinder, fan speed, threshing concave clearance, rotor, and so on. Below that, you can see our 3 favorites. Currently, all 3 are set on cleaning by blowing. To change that, just touch. We can set one to wheat. We can set one to oats. And we can leave one cleaning by blowing. Cleaning by blowing is a good thing to keep in here because what it does is once we select it, it opens and closes all the sieves, all the adjustments, speeds up the fan to help clean out the system and get ready for your next crop. Also back at the top here, you can see we've got a button where we can store our own crop data. So let's say that we took our 640 RPM and changed it to 700 and we wanted to save that. We would hit this button and we could store that as, let's say, oats 2022. We can rename our own crop or we can delete our own crop. From crop data, we will go into the moisture. Here you can see the on-off button for the crop moisture. We will turn it back on. Here we can see our percentage. So our crop adjustment percentage, basically if we are in the crop and we are getting a reading of 10, the cart driver tells us that it's actually 12. All we do is bump it up 2 points. So now it'll take that 10 and make it 12, hit the check mark, and we are done. Here we've got our straw moisture measurement on and off. That is for our auto chop. And here we've got our grain moisture storage. So right now you can see it's turned off. If we have turned this on and we are taking our crop off at 16% and we are storing it at 14, the CEBIS is going to do the calculation and figure out how many bushels or pounds you have at 14% storage. From there, we'll take a look at the quantum meter. So to calibrate the system to figure out how many bushels or pounds you're taking off, basically we would start with an empty grain tank, turn our test weight on. I'm going to select pounds like it is right here, and we go out and harvest at least one good tank full. Once we have our tank full, we would stop the machine, turn our test weight off. It's going to read X number of pounds here. Let's say it says it's 5,000 pounds. The cart driver takes that load back to the yard and tells us that it's 5,200. We would touch here and put in 5,200, hit the check mark, and our system is calibrated. To get more accuracy, you can do more than one tank load or do it more than once throughout the day. You should calibrate the quantum meter every time you change a crop or if conditions change. The calibration factor will change automatically once you do the calibration. For more accuracy, you do have to change the crop specific settings. Right here you can learn the zeroing of the quantum meter. On the last tab, we've got the grain quality camera, and in here you can change, if it's outfitted that way, you can change some settings. Next, we'll take a look at the work records. Here you can see we do have room for 20 jobs if we scroll through them all. If we do start a job here on number 1, it gets stamped with the time and date. We can start, we can stop a job. We can rename it as well. Up here we can see that you can either import or export jobs to a USB stick. We can print our data if we have a printer. Here we get some information on the GPS coordinates. Next, we'll take a look at the counter button. So here we can see our daily recorder. This one can be reset every day or each crop type. You can see that on this day we have 1.88 hours. By hitting this green button and then pulling down, it resets it to 0, and we can continue on for the next day. We have the crop recorder. So here it'll tell you how many hours and the area for each specific crop. So if we had hours under wheat, which we do, we have a total of 1.88 hours under wheat. Here we have the recorder summaries. So this is over the life of the machine. This one is not resettable. It goes from working hours, effective working hours, chopper hours, total distance traveled, total area, crop harvested, and total fuel consumptions. Next, we'll take a look at the service tab. When we enter the service tab, the first thing we see is the maintenance recorder. Here we can see our 10, our 50, 100, 250 working hour maintenance tabs. Here you can see in 8 hours, we will need to do a 10-hour maintenance. Let's say we've just done our maintenance and we want to reset that. So we would touch it, hit it, and hit yes, saying that we have done it. And now you can see it's going to count back down to our 10 hours. This machine is set up with a auto lube. You can see we do have a button for a one-time greasing. So we can grease it, let's say if we're going to be putting this machine away, we can grease it one last time before it goes into the shed, or when we bring it out first thing in the year. We have 3 different settings. We've got reduced, normal, and increased. I like the increased lubrication quantity because grease is cheap. Here we've got a list of all of our calibrations that we can do. So instead of hunting and searching, we can go into our service tab and our learning. Anytime you see a screwdriver, you can push and hold, and it'll tell you what needs to be done or why we're calibrating that. It also gives you when it needs to be done. We've got regular interviews, when the header is changed, and every season for these calibrations. Vehicle diagnostics. The operator will not be using this too much. Perhaps if he's on the phone with a technician or something, the technician may ask him to go in there. Same with the engine diagnostics. You will not be going into there too often. We can look at the alarm lists. So here you can see that our fuel level has been going off fairly often. We've got yellows and we've got reds. Yellows just being warnings and reds being more crucial. We can take a look at software and hardware on the module side. We can take a look at the versions of the CEBIS. We can look at the mobile network. And we can look at the memory card as well. Next, we'll take a look at the basic settings of the CEBIS display. Up at the top here, you can see display settings. So the first one here, we can set our display either to day or night manually. We've got the dark screen at night so it doesn't disrupt your vision. And also we can select depending on work lights. So I'll turn the work lights on and it turns automatically to black. Manually, we can adjust the brightness of the display. So if it's too bright, we can turn it down. And here we can turn the automatic brightness on and off. Next, we have user-defined secondary displays. So you can see on number 1 here, besides changing it from our main work screen, we can go in here and select and change things to see what we want to see. Just touch, scroll, and select. User-defined area number 2, same thing. We can change that just with the touch of a button. And then we can select the period of the adjustment. So how long we want that to stay up. So if we wanted to stay up there a little bit longer, after 5 seconds, it will disappear. Our favorites management. So here we've got 7 different positions you can see for our favorites, which is hidden behind the star. So once again, from our display, if we touch the star, we've got our 7 favorites right here. And this is where you would go and change them. If we did not want lateral tilt in our number 1 position, we could change it to header height. And now our header height will be in the number 1 position. So all we have to do is hit the trigger on the front of the C motion handle and it'll change our header height on the go. Below this, we've got the display period of how long our favorites stay up. So notice when I touch the star, it'll stay up there for approximately 3 seconds. If we wanted to keep that up longer, we could increase that value to 9, or we could do permanently on. So it'll pop up and stay there permanently until we decide to turn it off. If we make a mess of everything, we can reset our factory displays by hitting this button and resetting it and starting over. Here we have our auto lights. So we can turn them on and off. Our working lights for reversing, automatically on. work light for our grain tube automatically on, and our beacons or flashing rotating lights for the grain tank partial fill. We can turn them on and off here as well. Under audio settings, this is how loud our CEBIS is going to alarm or beep towards us. I like it on high, just that there's a lot of things going on and you want to make sure you get the operator's attention. Here we'll take a look at the assignment of the display area. Here you can see we're on display 3, so if we change anything, we'll be changing it on display 3. I'm going to go to display 2, or our working screen. So it shows us what we can change and where. So in our main display area, we've got our field mode, which I like. Our top secondary is our auto contour. Distribution system is in the number 2 section. So if we wanted to change that from distribution to a grain quality camera, if we go back to our main operating screen, you can see I put the grain quality camera in there. Also on display 1, or our road, we can change that as well. So it can be set up and configured any way you like. Below this, we've got the camera settings. We've got camera 1 input and camera 2 input, and we can set them according to where they are mounted. So number 1, we've got set as a hitch camera. If number 1 was, let's say, our rear camera, we could set it to that, and every time we go into reverse, it'll come on. And number 2 is our grain quality camera. Here in our basic settings, we can change our units. So we've got miles, bushels, and acres. We can change them to standard or imperial. Same with our temperature. We can go Fahrenheit or Celsius. We can set our date and our time. Here on the headliner towards the front of the combine, you can see controls for the power mirrors. Flipping it this way will change the mirror on the left, up, down, and sideways. Center is neutral. We can change the position of the mirror for the right-hand side by flipping to the right, and same thing, push it up, down, or sideways. Here we've got controls for our defrost, either defrost or heat. We've got inside temperature or outside temperature. We can change our fan setting. If we push this, we will now change our temperature setting, and our air conditioning button. Here on the panel, we can see the light switch. We can have park or running lights. We can select individually which lights we want on. If we select the ones in the front and turn off the lights and turn them back on, they will remain selected. Here you can see the microphone for talking on your telephone once you're connected through Bluetooth. A little bit of storage, or you can put an extra radio in, and then our radio. Up here on the right-hand side of the LEXION headliner, you can see we've got a cubby hole for storage. It's also heated and cooled depending on which system you have on. We've got a cab light, a reading light, switch for your hazard lamps, road switch, which will disconnect hydraulics for safety while traveling down the road, and then any other accessories like side windshield wipers and lights.